So welcome. So happy to see new faces here. And I also would like to ask you to introduce yourself in one or two sentences, and then we can jump into the area of diversity and retainment. We can start with you, Denise.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Denise Johnson, and I'm a diversity inclusion specialist. I work at we usually call ourselves a knowledge company, Amphi Production. And basically, we support other companies and organizations in working with these issues. And most often, we do quite long processes. So not the just one-off time things, but we usually do longer projects of around a year or something like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, hello, hi, I'm Sofie, and I'm working at Mindler. So Mindler are a digital therapy provider, the Swedish biggest, and I'm working with our B2B solution. So where we basically help companies to invest or help their employees with mental health.
Hi everyone, my name is Ivy. Originally I'm from Hong Kong, have been working as a diversity inclusion consultant for the last 8 to 10 years. I moved to Stockholm a year ago with my wife. And then currently I've done different projects. Mainly my clients are all global multinational companies, giving them advice, working with them to drive global and local diversity inclusion projects and learning and training and development.
Super, thank you so much. And Ivy, we can start with you because you have a really broad experience, right? Working in Hong Kong and then coming to Europe. So what do you see? What is really the connection between focusing on diversity and on long-term commitment to a company? Because now we are talking about a work perspective.
Yeah, of course. Well, actually, when I look at your question and also the topic of the panel discussion, there is something missing. We have diversity, we have retainment, but then we miss inclusion and equity, and that is very, very important part of creating a psychological safe space and an inclusive environment which lead to retainment. Especially in Sweden, which I think, last year when I was attending a conference, there's a conference saying that, okay, Sweden wanted to be a tech capital, in the world. And in order to have a tech capital, you attract talents, especially foreign talents who are probably outside Sweden, outside Nordic, outside EU. Of course, you can always, hire people based on, quota. You want to hire more women, more LGBT, more people with disabilities. But then how do you create an inclusive environment so that they can stay? I think this is the very big question that, in Sweden, a lot of companies miss that. I think one of the example I always share during discussion is that I have a friend who from Asia, very smart, got a master's degree in information technology here in Sweden, got a job in the IT department in a big multinational Swedish organization. But she was describing her relationship with her boss, who is local Swiss man, very conflicting sort of relationship because she always challenged his ideas, she always questioned his ideas and questions, and they always end up having argument. And then one time when they were having an argument, the boss was saying to her that, well, you are Asian, you should be more obedient. For the audience here or people who are hearing, that would be a shock. For her, it was no brainer. It's really the last straw, and within a year, she left. And she jumped to another tech international company, and now, even though that her family based in Stockholm, she is willing to commute to Malmo every week. Train from Stockholm to Malmo is like 5 to 6 hours. She's willing to do that because she said that she finds something that she can belong. She finds that her colleagues respect her. She has the space to challenge ideas. She can be heard. And yeah, I think that's the best case where if you want your people to be loyal to you, you need to have you need to make sure that your hiring managers, your managers who are Swedes, who are local, who are foreigners, to be aware of diversity and inclusion, in the workplace.
It's really true, and thank you for that addition. I think mentally we should add that. Moving to you, Sofie, what do you think when situations like that one Ivy described happen? Of course, that has an effect on that person, and there are many, many situations like that. Maybe not about someone being Asian, but maybe something else, and it can affect your work. It can affect your personal life, and what you do, it's perfectly serving that and helping those people to be able to talk about these situations, right?
Yes, yes. And you talked about psychological safety, and I just want to add on that because that's so important. I think like to create a climate where you have like acceptance and where people can, be themselves or dare to be themselves. That's so important. And I think with to higher diversity, that's a really ingredients for psychological safety, which results in retainment. And what we do is that we helping companies to get access to tools and services for their mental health. And one thing that is really important there is that the employees are anonymous when using us. And it's really different from like more traditional solutions that a lots of company has. For example, occupational health or insurance, healthcare. And we see that the usage rates are so much higher, and the companies are saying that to us as well when they come when they're coming from occupational health, for example, to us. So that's really, really important, first of all, to create a psychological safety workplace where people can be themselves, but also give access to tools so they can, because so many managers think that they need to solve the problem, but that's so wrong because they aren't psychologists, or they don't have to be psychologists, because the only thing that they have to do is to have this open climate and give tools to their employees. So except from giving tools to the employees, we're also working at the whole workplace, doing mapping for seeing how the mental health are around the company, but also looking at the psychosocial work environment factors. And there we are working a lot with like lectures and trainings on, for example, psychological safety, but a lot more.
Good. Let's talk about a bit more about that later.
Yeah.
Denise, what do you think about the connection of diversity, inclusion, equity, and long-term retainment?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like there are power structures in society and norms, and companies are not isolated from that. I mean, there are norms in all companies, and even though they can be formed differently in different companies, it usually means that people who don't conform to that norm will, have a harder time feeling that they can contribute, or, being seen or heard by their manager and things like that. And I mean, of course, it can be very frustrating to be in a role where you feel like you can't reach your full potential. So, and I think I definitely will just second that, like creating psychological safe teams and safe workspaces is very important for retention. But in order to create a safe space for everyone, you need to have a well-functioning diversity and inclusion program. Just as Ivy said, like the inclusion part is really, really important, because otherwise it will just probably be a space that will fit better for some, but not for everyone.
Definitely. Thank you for the great introduction. As someone who works in the business, and in the previous panel, we also touched some areas where it's really important to involve the managers and make them understand why a certain area is important. And when it comes to this area of diversity, it's always the question, okay, how can we show actual numbers, actual financial benefits, business benefits that is valuable for CXOs, CEOs, financial officers, and so on. So, do you have any numbers to share, any suggestions to make when it comes to have a conversation with a CXO? What could be a good message to give through? We can start from here, and then feel free to answer the question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there have been several reports showing that companies that have, as I said, well-functioning diversity and inclusion programs outperform other companies in many aspects. And I would also like to lift the recent studies that have been done in the UK. That's more like the 4-day work week, which have also had great results. I think Cambridge just posted their biggest report on it now, and from what I understood, 96% of those companies that have tried that are going to continue. So just tying that to kind of like the mental health part of it, and like being in a space where you feel like the company cares about you, and wants you to, have a good mental health, but also it also shows that it's good for performance. So in that sense, I really think that, the mental health work and diversity, inclusion, psychological safety it all goes hand in hand, and you have to have all those perspectives with you. But yeah, my short-term memory, sorry, I don't even remember the question now.
You answered the questions.
Yeah.
It was mainly about the business perspective and how can we show the benefit to high-level leaders that this is an important area to invest in.
Okay, can I just add then?
Yes, please do.
That since diversity and inclusion and psychological safety goes hand in hand, there's a lot of research showing that psychological safety leads to, more innovation, more creative problem solving, but also employees feel, safe enough to say, lift, identify, and talk about risks that they see in the organization. So yeah, in that sense, it will help everyone, reach their full potential, definitely, and that's very good for business, obviously. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree on everything you say.
I can add to that. Well, there are actually numerous reports supporting the business case of diversity inclusion. I don't think we need to, highlight them more. You just very easily Google it. But then I can share more business case around that. I know that, JP Morgan, for example, they hire people who are on neurodiverse. That means that they probably may be autistic spectrum, but they hire people who do technology, analytical work, even private banker. And their statistics show that they hire around 140, 150 people around 8 countries in different roles. And they said that, their productivity actually increased by 90 to 140%. Basically, some of them can actually do two-person work, because some of them probably will have a lot of focus, will have high attention to detail, etc. The error actually reduce. Another business case is around using pronoun on, like, for example, for LGBT people, for non-binary people. There is a friend of mine who works in an international company in the Netherlands, and she said that she actually got her client actually change their mind to work with them just because they saw the email signature have a pronoun in it, and the client think that just because they show that they have they're using pronoun in the email signature, signifying that the company value diversity inclusion. I think that's the best business case where there's actually not much cost in using or adding a pronoun in your email, but then the plus side is you actually win a business with that. And then recently I'm working with this travel technology company. Travelers can be anyone in this room, and can have different sexual orientation, gender identities, or even different disabilities. Generally speaking, when people think of disabled people, travelers, we may think wheelchair, a lot of barriers, a lot of costs. We constructing stuff, workspace. But then on the other side, if you think of, if you want to produce some business or products or service for people with disabilities, we actually forgot that we not only serve people with disability, we actually also support, getting business from their caretakers, their families as well, because when people travel, they not only travel alone, they need people who support them. So it's literally a win-win, because you are not only, your business actually double or triple, but at the same time, you also, increase, marketing, branding, also employee engagement in your company. So literally, there's no brainer in that. Yeah.
Could I just add something?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about, it's not so positive maybe, but I'd also like to warn about something, when talking about diversity, inclusion, and like the business positives, is that what you don't want to do is kind of push diversity, inclusion. Like as soon as you realize you have to work with it, you push it so much in mostly your communication channels, and maybe you have like a theme day or something. But if you don't make sure that you also walk the talk, then maybe, a lot of people that do apply and maybe actually get into the company will have very high, high expectations based on that marketing and, that employer branding. And if you don't live up to that, I think that the disappointment will be so much greater when you get in and you feel like, oh, but this is not what I expected. So in that sense, I just really want to, kind of just send everyone out with the tip that also like don't rush into it. Like if you feel like your company needs to work more with the issues, like really analyze first, what are your needs, what are your strengths, what are your challenges, get in the competence that that you need with someone that can strategically work with it before you kind of polish the surface, because then you kind of land in image management, and that's not what you want.
So you are saying there needs to be an example from the management side and also some internal work done.
Definitely.
So people are really, as you said, living up to that example and living up to that situation before you build a huge marketing around it and hire new people, and then they will be disappointed.
Yes. And even it's not only external marketing, like I also feel that applies to internal marketing, because if you push it a lot internally, but then maybe, for example, there's some like problematic situation with some manager or something, and that manager is behaving in a way that does not at all conform with the diversity inclusion strategy, but there are no consequences, then that also, I think, will lose. I mean, your employees will lose the confidence in that you actually, you mean what you say, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Getting back to the business numbers and KPIs, I know that you have some numbers to share from Mindler, or you have also some business perspective into how that comes to mental health and how companies can use it. Can you share some thoughts around that?
Yes, of course. It's many, but if we'll just look at the numbers, we see that like in Sweden, it's like 40% of the population that has had some problems with their mental health. And we also see that it's the biggest cause of sick leave in Sweden. And also the World Health Organization say that 2030 it will be the leading cause of illness globally. So obviously this is a huge problem, and especially when it comes to costs. It's so many costs related to it. And we used to talk about sick absence, but it's also it's not only sick leave, it's also sick prevalence. And that's the biggest part. People that are sick but are at work, but they can't perform and be their best in their best way because they are not feeling well. And if we look at the cost, related to, because it's harder to see the other one, but if we look at the cost related to sick leave, it's we say that it's 100,000 kroners just in production lost due to one long sick leave. So this is so much money. And there we come to the importance of the to work preventively. I can't pronounce that word. Because we see that if you treat people in cognitive behavior therapy, and that's the method that we at Mindler worked with, you can reduce sick leave by 35%, and that's so much. So that's, of course, if we look at the KPIs, it's reduce sick leave, it's increased production, it's reduced costs related to this, and so much on. And also another thing that is really important, it's like you talked about before, but like the employee branding, because it's today employees have like a lot of things about their workplaces and want their workplaces to work with those kind of things. So it's also really important in that perspective.
Yeah. And also you said you have trainings, workshops, but the most easiest way, I would say, but please correct me if that's not right, to have a simple conversation between the employee and the psychologist, and that's not really a big effort for any companies to do, just to set up that meeting and have a conversation and maybe do it regularly, right?
Exactly.
Is that the first step?
Yes, that's the first step. And that's also a part, like when you reached out to me with this topic on this panel, that, in these tough times, what to do when you can't hire the salaries. It's so many other things that you can look at. For example, Mindler, or something else that, supports your employees with their mental health. But it's so many other things that you can do, For example, at Mindler, we have something called Mental Health Day. And that's awesome. I have 4 every year. So it's like paid vacation. And I can take it connected to my normal vacation. So it's really a day that I just, be with myself, do some yoga, or maybe just watch a series the whole day. And that's like a really, really good perk, I think. And that's for free, So
that's a really good message for employer branding and hiring new people as well. And that would be my next question for you. I will ask Ivy and then feel free to add. So when it comes to hiring new people, Denise also said that you don't want to over push the marketing, right? But you still want to show people that this is a safe place to come and work. And you can add some value here, and we will appreciate your skills. Even if it's diverse, we can include you. We can work with you. So do you see any good examples in this area? And also, how can a company differentiate themselves from the competitors? Let's say someone saying this about diversity programs and someone says something else. So what can be a good message to people? Tough question.
Let me rephrase it. So what you meant is, when hiring people, how do you deliver your message?
Practically,
that you're
yes.
Inclusive or diverse.
Yes, when you are hiring and when you want to attract someone, so they are browsing on the web, looking at some places, and they want a place that is really inclusive, let's say. How can you share that information in a good way?
So interesting. I recently was looking at McKinsey. Somehow they have a Nordic LGBT networking event. So I was very interested, personally and professionally. And I looked into it and I tried to apply for it. And then I was directed into actually their platform where you don't only just apply by submitting CV or submitting, covering letter. You can also look at what kind of ERG, employee resource groups, they have. And you can select what kind of resource group you're interested in, and then they will send you information in it. And of course, during this communication, they will make sure that it's confidential. They will make sure that it won't affect your application to certain roles, stuff like that. But I think I'm very impressed by their intranet. So even though that I'm not applying for their role, I'm just interested in their networking event. They have very sort of comprehensive website where just anyone who are interested in this topic or their company to look at what they're doing, and you can join it as a student, as a early career professional, and to look at what is it. I think that's very, very important and precious, especially for young people who do not know about the workplace, who do not know that you actually can be yourself after you graduate from university, because most of the time they probably will be out at work, at school, but then once they graduate, they probably would think that they need to go back to the closet because they need to have a professional life. And then by looking at all these materials, I think this is a good source of information to tell your potential employees that you can be yourself and you do not need to hide yourself. I think that is the best example that I've seen recently.
What do you think, Denise?
Oh, difficult to give a good example. I would just like to see more like humble communication, to be honest, because I think, I haven't seen a lot of examples of companies being really humble with like, look, here are our challenges, like this happened last year, this is what we're doing, to fix it, because I just think that like kind of accepting that we, all companies have things they have to work on, and seeing it as a, continuously learning path, but also showing that, of course, like if, okay, we still have these challenges, but, if you face these challenges, these are the support systems that we have at least. So until we get better, this is what you can do in the meantime. I just remember, it's not a company example, but I remember when I started my bachelor's in Lund, and it was an international program with people from all over the world. And on the first day, they had information about like what can happen when you live in Sweden during the winter when there's not so much sun. And it was, I thought it was very good information, because they were like, oh, so here's the student health, here's you might feel like this, and it's not weird, and like just kind of preparing everyone for what's to come. And I would like to see the same things from companies in the same sense, because then you are prepared, and then you won't be, as disappointed, and you'll know how to handle things, and that you can go to that manager, or, and also just like being very like welcoming feedback and showing that you really want to have your employees' feedback. I think that's, that's just so much value coming from that, people being able to, give that feedback, because, the employees know best what's going on, on the floor. So, yeah.
All right, that's a good example, and actually the sun is connected to my last question. I have two questions, but because of sake of time, I will ask it as one. So when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and equity, what do you think, what could Sweden learn from other countries, and what could Sweden teach to other countries? And feel free to answer both or answer only one, whatever you feel is the best. We can start from you, Ivy, and then go this way.
I remember 1 year ago when I arrived in Stockholm, I was actually very impressed, not in the workplace, but when I was on the street, in the public places where I see people line up for bathroom. And the problem is not they are lying for a bathroom, but it's both men and women, or whatever gender identities they are. They have the same waiting time for bathroom. I think this is something that, for someone who are from Asia, is a game changer, because finally there is equity in people using the same thing. I think that's just something that other country outside Sweden can learn, because even nowadays I'm working with international teams in some companies. There are people who are actually struggling to renovate gender neutral bathroom in their company, in their office building in different country, like even in London, in the US, they are having this sort of tough conversation about gender-neutral bathroom, what to run away, who to use, etc. And I'm very blessed that in Sweden, there is actually very common to have a gender-neutral bathroom where anyone just do their business there. And I think this is something that, other countries can learn. Yeah.
Mm.
Fun fact, but I think we can be even more diverse. I think we can be more preventative. I think, for example, in the US, everyone is meeting their therapist. That's so normal. I think we can work more with stigma and look at other countries around that, normalize things when it comes to mental health, especially because that's my area. Yeah.
I guess Planned Parenthood, I guess, is one thing that we're pretty good at, I guess. But what we can learn, I think, is I think it has started to move past just focusing on gender equality, but I think a lot of organizations still have a long way to go in kind of broadening the work with diversity inclusion to really mean diversity and get past working mostly focusing on gender equality. And I think we need the data, like equality data, to be able to make that push, because I think we need the data to be able to actually, that's what's helped us move in the gender area. So I think we need that data within other areas as well.
Important points, thank you. And I will ask the audience, and also are there any online questions? Please raise your hand. There's a question here on the front.
Hi, thank you all for your efforts. I wonder, how do you think about the paradox about the culture who needs openness and trust contra servers who are anonymous? Anonymous. I think this question is also part of the first panel's issue concerning reskilling. I'm curious about your thoughts.
So can you repeat it? It was the paradox of openness.
Openness and trust from management or wherever, from top, according towards anonymous surveys. Why not open surveys?
So wanting to be transparent, but still not being transparent.
Oh. That's a tough. I think that it's good that we can use surveys where you can be anonymous, because we have still such a long way to go to, have the majority of companies where you feel like you can bring your true self to work and just feel like you can have that social rest and not have to kind of save face or, not maybe show all parts of who you are. And that doesn't mean that you have to be private about everything, share everything about you privately. But, for example, minority stress is a real thing, and that can inhibit you from feeling like you can, raise some concerns, because you have, there are many of us that have the experience of, when you've tried to raise an issue that, it's been belittled or you've felt diminished. So then you probably won't feel inclined to, raise that issue again. I have a weird, really horrible example from an organization that we worked with before, is that there was an employee there that passed away, and after that person passed away, that person's manager found out that the person belonged to the LGBTQ community, and the reaction from the manager was that they felt kind of what's the English word for kränkt? Disappointed, or oh, why didn't they tell me? That was the reaction. So that kind of tells us that we have a long way to go in realizing that creating safe spaces in the workplace. So I think it's it's a balance. But I mean, it's difficult to be anonymous in smaller organizations, so that's also a difficult topic. Yeah, definitely.
There also has to be a good balance between sharing the information and being able to receive the information.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and also sharing the result, you know, maybe to be anonymous when doing the survey, but then sharing the result as on an aggregated and anonymous level.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also think it's important for the management team to be transparent more than the whole company.
Yeah.
Well, I think both can exist together. You can have a management or a process or or like organization structure that is fair, trustworthy, and also fair, transparent. At the same time, people just want to be themselves. Like there's an example where I have this company. There's this person who transitioned within the workplace, and when we wanted to invite her to share her story, and she actually didn't want to be, put on a spotlight, because she just want to be her, and she just want to be any other person, and she don't want to be named, and she want to remain anonymous, and it's up to the person, right, to feel comfort level, to feel safe or not. So probably she transitioned, and she experienced all this transition, and then stay at the company because she trusts the management, she trusts the organization, can take care of her, can provide a safe space for her to transition from male to female. But at the same time, she doesn't want to be known all over the world in the organization as the special one in the company.
Heavy topics, and it feels hard to close it here and wrap it up here, but because of the sake of time we have to. Thank you so much. I still want to encourage you to talk to these people after we finish the panel. We still have some time for discussions, but for people who are watching online, thank you so much for being here and listening to discussions, presentations, to the panel, and I hope you learned something from this evening. Now I would like to say goodbye to you and hopefully see you next time. And for you who are here, we are closing up.